Which is better when soloing Pokemon Yellow? Jigglypuff the balloon Pokemon or Clefairy the fairy Pokemon? Yeah, Game Freak wasn't very inventive with that one. These are the rules for the solo challenges and they can be found in the description later. So technically today is a first. I have never done first stage Pokemon in a versus video before, but I figured it made sense for these two. I have played both of them on the channel previously, but only a single playthrough each, and those runs are very old. Clefairy was roughly 3 years ago, and Jigglypuff was roughly 4 years ago, all the way back at the very beginning of the channel. Because of how old those runs are, these two are not currently ranked in the Pokemon Yellow tier list. Right now, I have completed 108 out of 151 Pokemon. I am going to do this. It's been an absolutely massive project, but we are now in the final stretch, and part of what I have to do to complete all of the Pokemon is re-rank a bunch that I have already played. So today, we're going to add 2 more to the list and finish off Clefairy and Jigglypuff. I don't expect that these Pokemon are going to do particularly well. Right now, Wigglytuff's result is in the E tier by Drowsy, Raichu, Chansey, Omanyte, and Machop. Pokemon that don't perform particularly well in Pokemon Yellow. I think Clefairy will do a little bit better. Maybe it'll make a C tier placement if it's lucky, but I think it's more likely to fit into the D tier. Okay, so let's get to the base stats. Clefairy has 70 HP, 45 attack, 48 defense, 35 speed, which is unfortunate, and 60 special. In Generation 1, it has a 6.64% chance to crit, and luckily it has a higher special stat because it gets a lot of good coverage moves through TM and HM. The water moves, the ice moves, the electric moves, psychic, and fire blast. Things are a little bit more unfortunate when you consider its level up move pool. It starts with Pound and Growl, learns Sing at level 13, by far the worst sleep inducing move in Generation 1 with only 55% accuracy. Beyond that, the stuff that it learns is not really helpful until level 39 where it gets Defense Curl. Since this move can trigger the badge boost, I think I will be using it in my solo challenges, and just remember, Minimize is on my learn set, but it's banned until level 100, as per my rules. Now, another thing that connects these two Pokemon is the fact that they have the fast growth rate. This growth rate is very rare in Generation 1 because there are only 5 species that have it: the Clefairy line, the Jigglypuff line, and Chansey. In some ways, these Pokemon are going to struggle in Yellow version, although some of that will be made up for by the fact that the fast growth rate is really fantastic, especially on a first stage Pokemon where you're going to want to grind to a very high level to beat the overall game. Okay, so let's talk about Clefairy's early game. I think it's going to be able to get by Brock without having to use Double Slap at level 18. But with a weak attack stat and a move that's resisted, I think I'm going to need a decent level in order to take on Brock. But there are some fun tactics that we can play with once we get Sing at level 13. To level up, I fight the 2 bug catchers at the entrance of Viridian Forest, and then I fight wild Pokemon until I run out of PP. Now I have a new tactic that I want to employ. I can go to Route 22, fight the optional rival battle, and potentially Blackout after knocking out the Spearow, and then do the battle again, gaining more trainer boosted experience. Typically when employing Blackout training, you're either doing it against the second bug catcher because he has a Metapod at the beginning of his team, allowing you to spam out moves like Teleport and Kinesis if you're using an Abra or a Kadabra, also an Alakazam. I'm gonna have to re-rank it eventually, and yes, it starts with no attacking moves in Pokemon Yellow. The other trainer that's typically useful for Blackout training is the junior trainer inside of Brock's gym, but I think this rival also has some utility if you don't want to make it all the way through the forest, and you don't mind facing his Jolteon team later into the game. I have a single Blackout to him, but I defeat him on my second attempt. So there's only 4 more trainers now. The last inside of the forest, which is a Yellow version exclusive, the 3rd bug catcher, which is also a Yellow version exclusive, and then the mandatory bug catcher. Inside Pewter City, I can then fight the junior trainer, and by this point, Clefairy is level 14. So I only need to backtrack prior to Pewter City and train up a minimal amount to get to level 15 over a damage rounding threshold. I think this should be enough for Brock. Okay, against the Geodude, I need to mention the fact that I cannot use Sing to put it to sleep. Brock has a total of 5 full heals per Pokemon, and as soon as his Pokemon receives a status condition, he will 100% of the time heal it to remove the status before proceeding. So what I'm going to do here is lower the Geodude's attack by 1 stage using Growl, and then just spam Pound and hopefully knock it out, retaining some health for the Onix. Clefairy is doing more damage than I was expecting, so the Geodude faints decently quickly, and I have roughly half health left over for the Onix. This is where things get really fun because Generation 1 is a jank fest. I start off by using Growl on the Onix to lower its attack stat so that it does less damage to me every turn. This kind of counteracts his occasional uses of Screech, and it is going to lower damage from Tackle and Bind. Plus, it completely counters Bide if he goes for this move. Remember, Onix is faster, so I would attack into it if I was just spamming Pound. But I don't have to do that, because once Onix chooses Bide, then I can use Sing to put the Onix to sleep. Strangely, when Bide is active, Brock's AI will not use a full heal, so the Onix is just going to sit there and then I can pound away. This is not a perfect solution because eventually it will wake up, but what you do need to know is that all the damage I deal while Onix is asleep is not added to the Bide counter, so essentially I'm just squeezing in free damage. Of course, Sing can miss, and if this happens, then I have to go back to spamming Growl or chancing the pounds, and then Onix using Bide and accumulating a little bit of damage. If this happens, it isn't the end of the world though, because I can just use Sing again, stall out the Bide counter, and go back to using Pound. In my first attempt against Brock at level 15 with Clefairy, after returning to this Pokemon after 3 years, I managed to knock out the Onix and win. Okay, so if you think that's a fun way to beat Brock, there is an even better way with Jigglypuff. First of all, while you look at its move pool and realize a problem, I'm just going to read off its base stats. 115 HP, 45 attack, 20 defense, and 20 speed, and 25 special. So yeah, you're looking at its move pool right now. You have identified the fact that Jigglypuff only starts the game with Sing. It does not have an attacking move until level 9 where it learns Pound. Also, unlike Clefairy, it will not have access to Growl in the early game to lower Brock's Geodude's attack, which is unfortunate. It gets Disable at level 14, which is really unfortunate. That move's awful. Although, it's going to have a really fun use against Brock. Once again, because of his Onix's Bide. Anyways, beyond that, it gets Defense Curl at level 19 for badge boosts. That's much earlier than Clefairy, so that's helpful. Double Slap at 24, Rest at 29, just to make me happy. Body Slam at level 34, and Double Edge at level 39. Through TM and HM, it gets the same stuff that Clefairy does, but with base 25 special, I don't think that using its coverage moves is going to be the right play. I have a feeling Jigglypuff is going to be spamming a lot of Body Slam in this run. Okay, first battle against the rival. Let's talk through this one. I never really need to narrate this, but today I do. It's hilarious. So his Eevee has Tackle and Tail Whip. It can fail to attack me, but also if I put it to sleep, he does not have full heals like Brock. It's just going to sit there and do nothing. I have to continue spamming Sing. Eventually, when Eevee wakes up, I can put it back to sleep, and as a result, I just deplete all of my PP right here during the first battle and start using Struggle. Now, hilariously, in Generation 1, Struggle is purely a normal type move. It deals normal type damage, and it receives the same type attack bonus when you are a normal type. So Jigglypuff is dealing good damage with this move. I have massive health, so I'm not taking that much in recoil, and as a result, I am able to beat the rival's Eevee in the first battle, despite the fact I started the game with no attacking moves. Honestly, I think Butt should be humiliated here. Okay, so the fact that he lost in the lab means I'm either facing the Flareon team if I skip the battle on Route 22, or the Jolteon team if I defeat him there on Route 22. You have to lose the lab battle to get Vaporeon. There's one unfortunate thing. Right after the battle, I get healed automatically by the game, so I once again have to go and deplete all of Sing's PP before I can start using Struggle again to level. Because Jigglypuff's going to be damaging itself every time it deals damage, I go to the Pokemart and buy a bunch of potions. It is lucky I'm playing Pokemon Yellow because in Red and Blue, there are no potions available at this mart, which is very frustrating. In those games, I never stop by the mart in Viridian City. I always go there in Pewter City after defeating Brock just so I can buy potions as well as other healing items. I grind on wild Pokemon for a little bit because I don't want to get locked into a battle against 2 or more Pokemon where I have to use Struggle and then potentially could lose if the enemy gets a critical hit. Once I reach level 8, I start fighting trainers, the first 2 bug catchers, and this gives Jigglypuff enough experience to level up to 9 where it learns Pound. It still has PP for days, so I battle trainers in the forest before heading back at level 12 to face the rival on Route 22. Jigglypuff's fairly overleveled for this battle, so this is likely not going to be blackout training. Instead, I just defeat him, taking all of the experience, even using Sing against the Eevee. I love my sleep-inducing moves. Don't criticize me for this. I get a critical hit, knock the Eevee out, and with that, I head back to the forest to complete my training. After clearing the forest, I have neared level 15, and I don't even run out of PP. So I head into Brock's gym, defeat the junior trainer, level up to 15, and now I'm ready for the first gym leader. Okay, so Clefairy and Jigglypuff both have the same base attack, so I'm still doing decent damage to the Geodude every turn, and Jigglypuff Jigglypuff has massive HP, so I'm not too worried about Geodude's constant use of Tackle. This time I have a little bit under half health by the time I knock out Brock's lead, but against the Onix I have another strategy that I can employ. I can start by using Sing and hope that he runs out of full heals entirely, then I'll just put his Onix to sleep and be able to knock it out. Now, like with Clefairy, Onix is moving first, so if it chooses Bide and I'm using Sing, then it will fall asleep and he won't heal it. That's where things get really hilarious. If Onix is trapped using Bide, and then I use Disable, disabling Bide, which is exactly what happens here. Onix will need to first wake up from sleep, then once it wakes up from sleep, the Disable counter will start counting down. This gives me more time to put the Onix back to sleep. If I successfully do this, Brock once again cannot heal it. It has to wait till it wakes up to just resume counting down its Disable. I figured this strategy out when I first played with Wigglytuff, and it's always hilarious when you could trap the Onix in this way. It's not a consistent strategy because Disable randomly picks a move to disable whenever you use it, but if you get lucky, like I do here, then it makes the Onix really simple to take care of. Because of this strategy, Jigglypuff defeats Brock. It gets a split of 11 minutes and 12 seconds. Not the worst first split for a Pokemon that only started with Sing. Inside Mount Moon, I pick up the TM for Water Gun, my first special move. This is really only useful against rock ground dual types so that I can knock them out in one hit. I'm going to fight optional trainers in this section of the game just to level up as much as possible because Jigglypuff is not a great Pokemon. But it is going to get another moveset upgrade inside the cave. I pick up the TM for Mega Punch and teach this in the place of Sing. Unfortunately, no more sleep tactics for me in this run. Let the comments rejoice. I grab the Dome Fossil, defeat Jesse and James, and head into Cerulean City. The question to answer during this long stretch of walking is, do I want to fight the rival first or Misty? And I think it makes sense for Clefairy to go up against Misty first, because access to Bubble Beam will help me speed up Nugget Bridge, and potentially make the rival's Sandshrew a one-hit. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it with Water Gun. Misty has no idea what to do against Jigglypuff. She's going to be randomizing between her move choices, and she also has a chance to use an X defend. This is advantageous because her Staryu is much weaker than her Starmie. It does not have Bubble Beam. I can take my time here to set up defense curls, and this triggers the badge boost on my attack stat because I have Brock's badge. I wanted to increase the damage Mega Punch would do right away to the Starmie, but also take less damage from the occasional tackle used by her Pokemon. I get to +4, then I use Mega Punch, and it almost one-shots the Staryu. I take one more Water Gun before I knock it out. Okay, Starmie's next. I have just under half health. It attacks with Tackle. My first Mega Punch misses. Then it goes for Water Gun, bringing Jigglypuff down to 10 hit points. Mega Punch does more than half, which is really reassuring. Starmie goes for Harden, preventing Mega Punch from getting the knockout, and as a result, it chooses Bubble Beam one more time, which is too much for Jigglypuff. A little bit of a disappointing loss, but I'm just going to try this again right away. I have +3 defense this time and much more health for the Starmie. It doesn't choose Bubble Beam, which is very helpful, and I knock it out, earning myself the Bubble Beam TM, which I teach to Jigglypuff in the place of Water Gun. Okay, hopefully this will help against Rival 2. Well, technically Rival 3 when you fight the optional battle on Route 22. In this case, it will help because Spearow goes for Growl, lowering my attack right away. I have slightly more by 1 point special when compared with my physical attack, although then the Spearow goes for Leer on the next turn, which badge boosts my attack over my special. Still, they're fairly equivalent and Bubble Beam gets the knockout. And I was going to use it against the Sandshrew anyway. It gets the one hit, so no chance for Sand Attack. From there, things usually get easier, but today I'm not so sure. Rattata is quite offensively decent in this section of the game and it has Hyper Fang, but Jigglypuff's outrageous HP comes through for me. I'm very squishy. As a result, I knock out the Eevee and defeat the rival. I'm going to say no to Double Slap. I don't think it's a useful move. Nugget Bridge and Route 25 end up being very straightforward. Mega Punch is quite good during this section of the game, and Bubble Beam helps me for the Geodude that I have to face. It also lets me fight this hiker for some fast experience. Okay, moving along. No problems with Sandy because my Jigglypuff is faster than her birds, and I can one-hit all of them provided I don't miss, avoiding Sand Attack. Okay, time for the SSN. I pick up the TM for Rest here, as well as the TM for Body Slam, which I teach to Jigglypuff right away in the place of Pound. After defeating the Gentleman, I level up to 29, where Jigglypuff can learn Rest. Now, I'm starting to get a little bit of moveset constraint here. There's only one slot that I don't really think I need, which is Mega Punch, so I'll delete that move for now and take the Recovery move just because I don't have another alternative in mind. The rival on the SSN is very easy with my newly upgraded set. The SSN departs, and I head into Surge's gym for what is usually one of the worst gym leaders in any playthrough. And by worst, I mean he's awful. He is just terrible. This guy is so incompetent. The Mighty Raichu is his only Pokemon. It uses Growl. Well done. Body Slam does about a third. Surge then uses an X speed, which makes no sense when facing a Jigglypuff. I go for another Body Slam. This one inflicts paralysis, cutting the Raichu's speed to the point that Jigglypuff is now faster. I move first, take it down to a sliver of health. Raichu can't move because of the status condition, and I knock it out. This is the type of performance that we have come to expect from Surge. Just ignore what happened in my EV video last week. We can all forget about that. Okay, let's go back to Clefairy. It plays exactly the same throughout Mount Moon. Water Gun, Mega Punch, defeat the trainers, and then head into Cerulean City. I'm also targeting Misty first. It makes way more sense with Clefairy's higher special. Thing is, I can't employ the same strategy. Instead of badge boosts, I have to rely on Sing. Now, luckily Misty does not have full heals. Imagine if they had given every single gym leader 5 full heals like they did with Brock, just thinking that they should be good against status conditions. That would have been really frustrating. I think the reason Brock has them is to sort of disincentivize poison luck play in order to defeat him. You have to find moves that are super effective instead. Luckily, one of the starters in Red and Blue is Charmander, which has Ember, and of course, in Generation 1, that move is super effective against his rocks. Okay, let's get back to what I'm talking about now, which is water Pokemon. I did not use Sing on the Starmie, and this ends up being a mistake. It crits with Water Gun, Mega Punch is not doing enough damage, and Starmie finishes Clefairy with Bubble Beam. So I said I was done with sleep tactics in the Jigglypuff playthrough, but not here. Of course, we gotta put the Starmie to sleep. It's so satisfying watching it do nothing to me every turn. Then I spam Mega Punch and one final pound, barely surviving the last Water Gun with 2 hit points, but I do knock out Misty's ace. Okay, so I have Bubble Beam for the rival and all of Nugget Bridge. This section of the game is quite straightforward for Clefairy. On the S.S.N., rest, Body Slam, the rare candy, and then defeat the rival. He's really simple. And you know who else is simple? Surge. In this case, he does choose Thunderbolt, which does about half, but then I knock out his Raichu with one more Body Slam. By the way, the reason Clefairy beat him so quickly is because it got a critical hit with the first Body Slam. Before the wrapping lasts, it's time to upgrade Clefairy's moveset because it's good with special moves. Well, okay with special moves. It is a first stage Pokemon. I'm going to teach Thunderbolt in the place of Water Gun for a little bit more type diversity. The only fear against the Wrapping Lass is that I get hit by Stun Spore after failing to knock out with Body Slam, but it looks like I'm able to consistently one-shot the Oddish, so this isn't a problem. Thunderbolt helps speed things up against the Slowpoke in Rock Tunnel. I get a one-shot here, which is convenient. Bubble Beam crushes the self-destructing Hiker, and then I make my way into Celadon City. I'm playing a first stage Pokemon, so it makes the most sense to go into the Rocket Hideout and pick up one additional candy. This costs roughly 25 seconds, so it's not a huge excursion. Inside the department store, I have enough money to buy 3 vitamins. I'm choosing Carbos here because I need as much speed as I can get, especially through the mid-game. Now, before heading to Pokemon Tower, I'm going to make a quick excursion to Saffron City to pick up the TM for Psychic. This will be really good against the upcoming ghosts, if I can get to them. So check this footage out. This is the first time this has ever happened to me while doing one of these solo challenges. I fly to Lavender Town, arrive in the city, walk over to the little cave entrance to Pokemon Tower, miss my entrance by 1 tile, bump into the wall, then I have to recorrect my direction because playing on 4 times speed is quite hard, especially with doors. I miss the entrance again. Watch this person. They're walking towards me. They block the door and then they walk into the door, but their sprite of course doesn't disappear. And I get my movement right at this specific moment, trapping them in the doorway. Okay, so this is a frustrating NPC interaction. By the way, I have to just walk to the side and wait for this person to move, which takes way longer than I was hoping for. They even walk back into the doorway before finally clearing out and allowing me to enter Pokemon Tower. Rival time. This one is easy. Thunderbolt the Fearow, Thunderbolt the Shelder, Body Slam the Vulpix, Bubble Beam the Sandshrew, and Body Slam the Eevee, which is unfortunately a 2-hit, slowing me down just slightly. Agatha Jr. is next. In this case, I was really surprised by the fact that Clefairy is faster than the Ghastly. I think this is because I've been leveling up very quickly with a fast growth rate. I'm now level 33 in Pokemon Tower, and usually Pokemon are lower than this at this point in the game. Psychic gives me answers to Jesse and James's Pokemon. I do want to say, if I was a Fairy type here, this fight would be pretty scary because the Weezing Sludge hits like a truck. Even taking neutral damage from it, it almost does half. From there I head to Cycling Road and I do a bunch of optional training on all of the trainers here that give good experience yields. This brings Clefairy up to level 39 where it learns Defense Curl. Right now of my current set, I think it makes the most sense to give up Bubble Beam. Although this makes my current moveset quite constrained. I don't want to give up Psychic until I've defeated Agatha. I want Thunderbolt for Lorelei. Defense Curl is my only badge boosting move, and obviously I want to hold on to Body Slam for same type attack bonus physical damage. So I guess I'm not going to have Ice Beam for Erica. Might as well just fight her now with Psychic. Tangle is first, I use Body Slam doing almost half. Its Vine Whip does almost nothing. It chooses this move again and then I knock it out over 2 more turns. Weeping Bell comes in. I could have gone for Psychic here, but I choose Body Slam. It might have been a misclick. I get hit by Sleep Powder as a result. Clefairy snoozes and as a result I take a loss. Okay, so apparently Body Slam is the correct choice. I'm probably looking at the damage ranges in the router during this fight because I'm not choosing Psychic. By the way, I typically don't like to show damage ranges during these first playthroughs because it takes away some of the mystery from the follow-up attempts. I do it in some scenarios and occasionally just to mix things up, but in this case I was genuinely curious about it and I think you will be too, so I looked at the damage ranges. In this case, yes, Body Slam does do more damage, and I figured the secondary effect of paralysis would be more helpful. Because of it, I don't give the Weeping Bell a chance to attack, so I move on to the Gloom, but it also has Sleep Powder. Now, as you will have seen from the damage ranges, I do more damage with Psychic against this Pokemon, so I'm going to switch to using it instead. While I'm not able to one-hit it, it just chooses Acid, and then I knock it out, earning myself the 4th badge. Inside Sylph, I do some optional training, although not extensively so. I'm only fighting the trainers that give really good experience yields, and this brings Clefairy up to level 43. I figured this might be enough for the rival, so let's try him now. Without Ice Beam, I'm going to be using Psychic against the Sand Slash. This does less than half, and I'm hit by Sand Attack, so this fight's probably going to be a loss. I Body Slam the Ninetales, Thunderbolt the Cloyster. I miss here, so it slows me down a little bit. Kadabra hits with Confusion before I take care of it with Body Slam. And then Jolteon comes out. Now, this is a disadvantage of fighting the rival on Route 22. This thing knows Double Kick, which is super effective against normal types, and it's doing decent damage to Clefairy. Unless Body Slam is going to one-shot, I'm going to lose here, but instead it just misses because of the Sand Attack, and I take a loss. I tried again. This fight goes even worse. Sandslash uses Slash. Ninetales is basically free. It's terrible, by the way. Cloyster then does a lot of damage with Aurora Beam, and then the Kadabra beats me. Since I'm partway through level 43, I fight the Hypno Sandwich, gaining a little bit more experience, and then this Scientist with Electrode and Wheezing, going up to level 44. Maybe using 6 rare candies now to level 50 will make the rival a little bit more manageable. I can 2-shot the Sandslash, but this doesn't let me avoid Sand Attack. I hate this move. It's so frustrating. Then Ninetales is actually competent for once, attacking with Ember twice, lowering my health all the way down to orange. Thunderbolt comes through with a one-shot against the Cloyster. I am not faster than the Kadabra though. Luckily, it wastes its turn with Disable. I make it back to the Jolteon, but it's still using Double Kick. Body Slam cannot one-shot, and Clefairy takes another loss even at the higher level. So I was a bit stubborn. I figured I would eventually get lucky. Sandslash can use things like Swift, doing very little damage. Then Ninetales could just spam moves like Roar or not get critical hits with Ember. If I'm one-shotting the Cloyster and one-shotting the Kadabra, and it can choose Disable, then I have the chance of making it back to the Jolteon with green health. And that's what happens here. But then it critical hits with Double Kick. Luckily, I have decent health left over. Body Slam does a lot. I survive the next non-crit Double Kick and finish the rival. This is the second bumpy spot for Clefairy, and it was much more bumpy than, say, Misty earlier on. I just should have used Sing there the first time around. Now, as a normal type, sometimes you need to be worried about Giovanni in Sylph because his Rhyhorn is quite defensive, but luckily I have Psychic to manage it. And I figured this move would also be pretty good against the Nidoqueen, but it has Double Kick, which in this case gets a critical hit, bringing Clefairy down to low health. If I Gen 1 miss, I will lose, but I don't, so Giovanni, no problem. Sylph is finished. Inside the Fuchsia City Gym, I can beat up the jugglers using Body Slam. I also take on the Tamers for additional experience, and then go up against Koga at level 53. Fingers crossed I'm going to get one hits on all of the Venonats here. First one goes down, second one goes down, and so does the third, so this fight should be easy. Provided the Venomoth doesn't luck out with Double Team, which is what it chooses on the first turn. After that, it starts going for Leech Life while Clefairy misses. Eventually it uses Psychic, but it doesn't drop my special attack. I'm not able to knock out with the next hit, and I run out of uses of Psychic, so I have to finish it with Body Slam. But it keeps avoiding its best move, choosing things like Leech Life and Toxic, giving me the time I need to win. Okay, so far things have been pretty straightforward with Clefairy. I'm going to need to somehow improve my results against the rival, but other than that, this has been going quite well. Let's loop back around and see how Jigglypuff does throughout this section of the game. Body Slam is great for all of the Wrapping Lasses Pokemon. Inside Rock Tunnel, I don't have access to Thunderbolt because I'm keeping my current set: Body Slam, Rest, Defense Curl, and Bubble Beam. I think of any of the moves, I would give up Rest in this scenario, but I think there's synergy between my first 3 slots. Defense Curl badge boosts, Rest recovers health back from whatever I've lost lost on the first Pokemon of the battle, and then Body Slam will deal massive damage utilizing my higher attacking stat. Increased type coverage won't help Jigglypuff in the same way that it's helping Clefairy. Of course, I grabbed the hideout candy, purchased myself some Carbos. I think that speed is probably a lost cause, but I'm just gonna try this out for my first run. They're generally the safest vitamin to go for when you're not sure what you should be using. The rival in Pokemon Tower is fairly straightforward. Now, I do backtrack to Saffron City before taking on Agatha Jr. just to pick up Psychic. I teach it in the place of Bubble Beam because I think it's going to have more utility than a water move throughout the next section of the game. If you're worried about rock types like Giovanni's Rhydon, I can always use Defense Curl to buff Jigglypuff up before I face it. Okay, Cycling Road, I got some unfortunate news. I was trying to train here with Jigglypuff, but it's just not very good. So fighting the biker that has 2 wheezing and 1 coughing, I end up blacking out. I didn't save recently and I don't want to go all the way back to Pokemon Tower, so this is the fastest way for me to progress with the playthrough. I go back and get my Retribution against this trainer. With him out of the way, I do the same sequence of events that I did with Clefairy. Erica with Jigglypuff is a little bit annoying. The Tangela is faster by 1 speed, so it can trap me in bind over and over again. That also means that the Weepinbell is going to be faster, but I have my speed lowered here, so all of her Pokemon are now faster. Weepinbell uses Razor Leaf, then Acid, lowering my defense before I knock it out, and I move on to the Gloom, but I'm not in a good position. It goes for Petal Dance right away and knocks Jigglypuff out with a critical hit. So instead of fighting Erica, I'm going to battle some of the trainers in her gym for experience and then go to Sylph to do a whole bunch more grinding. I get to level 43 and then I decide to take on the rival. I don't know if this is a good idea after how it went with Clefairy, and that is the order I played the runs in. Clefairy first, Jigglypuff second. I should have been more conservative here and done more training or used rare candies because the rival's just not going to happen at this level. I don't even make it by the Cloyster. I go back to fight Erica at the slightly higher level. Now it's more possible because I'm faster than the Weepinbell, although with Body Slam I am not able to one-shot. Maybe a single badge boost here would make sense, although that exposes me to speed drops from Constrict. By the way, did you know Constrict actually has a secondary effect? I rarely see it, and I'm still in disbelief every time it actually drops my speed. In this case, Erica isn't a problem. I get paralyzed by the Gloom, but I have more than enough health, so I pull through with a victory. This is where I get a little bit indecisive with Jigglypuff. I wasn't sure what to do next. I wanted more levels, so I end up going back to Sylph and training a little bit, but I didn't think facing the rival at level 44 made any sense. So I dig out of the dungeon and head over to Koga's gym. There's some good experience here, so I level up to 46 before taking on the Poison type specialist. Okay, so remember how Clefairy got really lucky during this battle? Yeah, Jigglypuff can't one-shot the Venonats, which is unfortunate. They're all 2 hits with Body Slam. And then the Venomoth comes in and just crits right away with Psychic, doing more than half, knocking Jigglypuff out. In retrospect, I think training makes more sense now, but I tried again, and this time I pull through because Venomoth is incompetent. It uses Toxic, Double Team, I don't miss. While I do miss and take some Toxic damage on the next turn, I am able to finish it off and earn myself the 5th badge. But this is where things are going to get tricky for both of these Pokemon. Blaine is coming up next, and he is notoriously one of the hardest gym leaders in Pokemon Yellow. That is not sarcasm, that is legitimately true. Everyone always thinks about Red and Blue Blaine. I decided to prepare for him by fighting all of the trainers inside his gym for additional experience. This gets Jigglypuff to level 50, and I figured if I'm not going to be able to do it at this level, I'm going to have to go somewhere else to train. So let's try Blaine and see what happens. First turn, Ninetales comes in, it goes for Flamethrower, its best move, gets a critical hit, and brings Jigglypuff down from full health, which is 205 HP, all the way to 14 HP. Okay, this is a loss. I tried again. This time, Flamethrower, critical hit, 30 HP left over. So I'm going to use Rest, Heal, and then maybe I can set up Defense Curl and get a bunch of badge boosts. Because the Ninetales does have Tail Whip. So if it lowers my defense and then I raise my defense, I am constantly stacking badge boosts, and I can do this until all of my stats, with the exception of special, are at 999. The problem is, I'm addicted to Rest. I heal, get hit by 2 Flamethrowers, Ninetales confuses Jigglypuff, and I lose again. Okay, rival in Sylph instead of Blaine. Let's try this one first. I usually like to fight him after Blaine so that I have the special boost from Blaine's badge, but in this case, it seems like I'm being forced into this. His first 2 Pokemon aren't problematic. I am not hit by Sand Attack, so I'm in a good position by the time I arrive at the Cloyster. It likes to use Withdraw and Supersonic, and I can play around this by spamming Defense Curl. This minimizes the damage I would take if I hit myself in confusion, and eventually I'm going to be able to use Rest and then have massive badge boosts for the final 2 Pokemon. Plus, Jolteon using Double Kick is a physical move, so I will take less damage from its direct damage. I'm faster though because I have Koga's badge, so Body Slam moves first, doing almost half to the electric type. It strikes back with Double Kick, doing pathetic damage. That feels really good. I hit with one more Body Slam. It's not quite enough, but chooses to use a potion. Well done, buddy. Absolutely useless. I hit with one more Body Slam, and this obstacle is cleared. Instead of going back to Blaine, I'm going to stay in Saffron City and fight Sabrina. I don't think either of these Pokemon have a particularly good matchup against her because they're not fast. Although I one-shot the Abra, one-shot the Kadabra, even though I was hit by Flash. I move on to the Alakazam, it sets up Reflect. I choose Body Slam, which gets a critical hit and knocks out her ace. Jigglypuff just crushed her. Unfortunately, that means I have to go back and face Blaine. This time around, it goes so much better when the Ninetales just doesn't use Flamethrower. I get set up to +4 defense, and then I use Body Slam and finish off his lead. Rapidash doesn't do much with Takedown. Body Slam almost one hits, but it does inflict paralysis, giving me another attack, finishing it. So I made it to the Arcanine. This is pretty good, but it goes for Reflect, and then Body Slam does, like, maybe a fifth. Not very much. I guess I could use Psychic now to get around Reflect, which it uses again, although the special move is doing even less damage. Arcanine chooses Flamethrower, and Jigglypuff faints. Okay, check out what the solution is. I sit on the Ninetales for what feels like an eternity, just setting up with defense curls. I'm gonna get all the way to +6. I will use rest if I need to. If I lose because Flamethrower hits multiple times in a row, I'm just gonna be sad about it. I don't really think there's a way to make this fight much more consistent other than just spamming a bunch of rare candies right now. And in what feels like a first playthrough for me, I don't think that's safe. Now this takes a very long time, and I don't even go to +6 because the Ninetales used too many Tail Whips and confused Jigglypuff. But I knock it out, move on to the Rapidash. With this amount of setup, I'm able to one-shot. Arcanine comes in. My Jigglypuff has badge boosted itself so that it's faster. Body Slam inflicts massive damage, and Blaine's ace goes down. I am really not looking forward to optimizing that battle. I do think it's just going to come down to luck. It's always a little bit dissatisfying when that has to be the solution for a battle in a playthrough, but oh wow. Let's move on to Giovanni now. So we could lose to Fissure right away, but I'm also going to be able to badge boost myself and hopefully get enough speed to prevent it from activating. Once that happens, I figured that I'll be able to knock out the Dugtrio, but it used 2 sand attacks and Jigglypuff is just not hitting. I get my accuracy lowered all the way to -4 before I knock out Giovanni's first Pokemon. But from there, things go very well. I hit the Persian, I hit the Nidoqueen with Psychic, knocking it out in one hit. Nidoking comes in, it goes for Double Kick, which does almost no damage. Psychic is missing a bunch, and then Double Kick crits. I take a second loss to Fissure right away. At least it was a quick reset. Okay, so Jigglypuff is letting me down. This is another battle that's going to require luck. If I want to set up on the Dugtrio to badge boost and outspeed it, I am exposed to Sand Attack and Fissure. Plus, this thing loves to crit with Dig and Earthquake. All of its moves are good. What I'm hoping for is successive, non-critical hit digs, giving me time to set up with Defense Curl. If that happens and I get all the way to +6, then I outspeed and I can sweep through Giovanni's team. Body Slam 1 hits the Dugtrio, the Persian. Psychic 2 hits the Nidoqueen and the Nidoking, so that's a little bit unfortunate without the badge boosts from Sand Attack. Although I take very little damage provided they don't get critical hits. Also, Giovanni sponsored by Guard Spec. After that, Rhydon, Psychic does not very much because I leveled up. So that's unfortunate. Luckily, this thing is terrible. It gets a Guard Spec. Then it uses Fury Attack, making no sense. It also has a low speed stat, so it's rarely going to critical hit, and as a result, after dropping its special, I'm able to knock it out in only 3 turns. Unlike Clefairy, the mid-game has been really bumpy for Jigglypuff, and it continues to be bumpy against the rival once again. Hopefully all of you are seeing the mistake that I made early on. I wanted experience for Brock to beat him as quickly as possible, but now I have given up all of the time savings I would have had there losing to the Jolteon. I set up in the previous fight against the Sandslash. I try that again here, but this time it doesn't work out because it does have Slash, which bypasses my stat changes. Okay, I think it's almost time to use rare candies, so I'm gonna level up to 58 before I do. Then I use 7, bringing Jigglypuff up to level 65 before fighting the rival again. Once again, like against Blaine's Ninetales, I take a seriously long time against the Sandslash, slowly setting up all the way to +6 to maximize my badge boosts. Now, this is a disadvantage of the fast growth rate. If I want to prevent mid-battle level up, level-ups, it's gonna be much harder with this type of Pokemon than it would be if I had a slow growth rate, for example. Luckily, at level 65, I will not level up during this battle, so once I get fully set up, I'm gonna have my boosts for all of the remaining Pokemon. I'm able to pull it off, one-shot the Execute, the Ninetales. I heal against the Cloyster, taking my time before I knock it out using Psychic, and then I one-shot the Kadabra as well as the final Jolteon. And notably, at this level with these badge boosts, Jigglypuff is faster than it. I was so close to leveling up to 66, so I fight one wild Pokemon in Victory Road just to pop over to level 66. With that, Jigglypuff is ready to face the Elite Four. But we need to catch up with Clefairy, so let's go through Blaine. This fight is awful with both of these Pokemon. It really comes down to setting up Defense Curl against the Ninetales, praying that it doesn't get a lucky Confuse Ray or occasionally uses Flamethrower. Also, there is another downside here. If Flamethrower hits and causes a burn, it basically ruins all of my attempts to win. Luckily for me, I'm able to badge boost myself several times, then one-shot the Rapidash and take care of the Arcanine because it just chooses Flamethrower, but I'm at full health. It does less than half, and this is where Clefairy really does differentiate itself from Jigglypuff. Its higher special stat and defense stat when compared with Jigglypuff really do make Blaine easier, even though he is still absolutely awful and in a lot of ways just completely luck dependent. Unfortunately, I do not get lucky against Sabrina. The Alakazam gets a critical hit Psychic and finishes Clefairy off, but I beat her on my next attempt. She's generally one of the worst gym leaders in Kanto. She's kind of random like Surge, but in general I give her more respect just because there's more stuff that can go wrong. Flash from Abra, she has fast Pokemon. Psywave is sometimes helpful, as I have found with my recent backport runs using Dark-type Pokemon. So what about Giovanni? Well, here I get really unlucky. I get hit by Sand Attack, Dig does massive damage, and then Persian, after surviving a hit from Ice Beam, crits me. So with Clefairy right now, the set I'm using is Psychic, Ice Beam, Defense Curl, and Thunderbolt. I have dropped Body Slam because it tends to not be very useful once you get to Giovanni. I was trying to not set up against Giovanni too much and expose myself to risks on the Dugtrio and the Persian. I didn't think I would need to do this with a higher special stat when compared with Jigglypuff, but it turns out I do need to set up with Defense Curl at least a little bit. In the final fight against him, I've reverted back to the Body Slam moveset. I set up to +4 on the Persian and then knock it out. Psychic one-shots both of the Nidos at this level of setup, but I am left with red health for the Rhydon. I do just under half, and that crushed my hopes. But then I get a special drop, and Giovanni uses a guard spec. So I won when I really didn't deserve it. Okay, check out this fight against the rival. I set up Defense Curl on the Sand Slash 3 times. Then my health is getting low because of Slash, so I decide to attack. Body Slam isn't able to one-hit the Execute, but it just goes for Solar Beam, so I get it for free anyway. Then the Ninetales attacks with Quick Attack, doing little damage. Luckily, this one does not have Flamethrower. It does get a critical hit with the next Quick Attack, bringing me down to 25 hit points, but I have Thunderbolt for the following Cloyster. This is where Clefairy levels up, losing its badge boosts. So now the Kadabra is faster, but I kept Body Slam and it goes for Reflect. Then Clefairy gets a critical hit, knocking the Psychic type out in one turn, but Jolteon is last. It does not have Double Kick anymore, instead it goes for Agility, raising its speed, which is useless. Body Slam does more than half. It chooses Pin Missile, gets a critical hit, only hits twice, leaving Clefairy with 6 hit points, and I win. That is another completely undeserved and lucky win for me. I want to keep this momentum going. Inside Victory Road, I fight one Cool Trainer, the guy with 3 water types. This levels Clefairy up to level 61 before I take on the Elite Four. Clefairy starts out feeling very dominant against Lorelei. She's using Rest so I can set up Defense Curl here on the Dugong, and that allows Thunderbolt to crush it, the Cloyster, and the Slowbro. I'm surprised the last of these fell to a single hit. Jinx is next. I still have my badge boosts, so Body Slam takes care of it, but then Clefairy levels up going into the Lapras. This is where things get a little bit more sketchy because it could get frozen. Thunderbolt is definitely not going to one-shot, and it looks like it isn't going to 2-hit. I tank a Body Slam, attack again, Lapras survives, goes for one more Body Slam. It gets a critical hit, but Clefairy survives and knocks out Lorelei's ace. Alright, time for the hiker. I have Psychic. I crit the first Onix, one-shot the Hitmonchan and the Hitmonlee, even though it is faster than Clefairy, but he just went for an X defend. Psychic without a critical hit can knock out the higher level Onix, so all that remains is Machamp. Now, if it chooses Submission and gets a critical hit, which has happened this year, again, let's just forget about the Eevee video, then maybe it'll knock out Clefairy. Well, in this case, he just uses an X defend. Alright, well done, Hiker, well done. Before Agatha, I wanted to ensure that I wouldn't level up mid-battle, so I used 2 rare candies going up to level 65. Now on the first Gengar, which isn't really competent against normal types, I can set up with Defense Curl, get enough speed to move first against all of her Pokemon, and then strike back with super effective Psychic. Thunderbolt one-shots the Golbat, and from there the remaining Pokemon on her team are all really easy. The only thing I need to look out for are status conditions from the Haunter or Final Gengar, Confuse Ray or Hypnosis, but they can also just attack with Dream Eater when I'm not asleep. Okay, for Lance, I have taught Ice Beam in the place of Psychic. Then I have Thunderbolt for the Gyarados and super effective damage against his remaining Pokemon. I knock out the Gyarados after going to +1 defense. I get a critical hit, which I think helped. I wasn't sure I was going to one-hit the following Dragonair, but I am able to with Ice Beam. On the second one, I'm going to take my time and set up Defense Curl so that I can move first against the Aerodactyl. At +5, I have enough speed. I one-shot the Dragonair, one-shot the Aerodactyl, and one-shot the Dragonite. Okay, prior to the champion, I'm going to use my final 3 rare candies to level up to 70. But before we see how Clefairy does there, let's go back and see how Jigglypuff does with the Elite Four. For Lorelei, I'm in a little bit of a weird position. I want to keep Body Slam, especially for the champion's Alakazam, and because Jigglypuff's special stat is just not very good. I want Psychic for the following Hiker and Agatha. And I think I need Rest and Defense Curl as a combo here if I want to set up against Lorelei. So there's no space for Thunderbolt, which is kind of unfortunate. As a result, this fight looks pretty messy, especially once I reach the Lapras. I haven't lost my badge boosts here, but then it gets a massive Hydro Pump because of a critical hit, and due to that, Jigglypuff loses. However, if her ace does not get a critical hit, then this fight is really simple. But you know what isn't simple? Fighting the Hiker's Hitmonlee. Again, it's faster. This time it uses High Jump Kick instead of an X Defend, and because of that, I lose. Alright, fine, I'll name him in this video. Bruno, well done. Instead, I'm just going to set up Defense Curls on the Onix, so that if I get hit by High Jump Kick or Submission, I'll take less damage. This also boosts my speed so that I'm not going to get hit by these moves, and then I can just one-shot with Psychic. The Machamp, however, does survive, and in true Hiker fashion, he uses Leer. Okay, Agatha, for this one, set up a bunch of Defense Curls, then sweep with Psychic, much like Clefairy did. It is slower though, as is the case with pretty much everything Jigglypuff does. It really feels like when they sat down to design these two complementary Pokemon, they were like, Clefairy, it's going to be pretty good at most things, it's kind of well-rounded, it's a normal type so it gets most of the moves, and you're probably going to want to use this thing. And then Jigglypuff, we're going to give it all of the HP, but not as much as Chansey. But just to make sure that Chansey has its own niche, let's give it good special and Jigglypuff trash special. Honestly, ever since I had Sing at the very beginning of this game, I have not really been enjoying this playthrough. Anyways, I do make it by Agatha on my first attempt here. I've got some candies in my bag, so I'm going to use 2 of them before Lance, just to ensure that I don't level up during this fight. I'm also going to use Ice Beam in the place of Psychic now. Psychic is really not that good for Lance and the champion in Pokemon Yellow, so usually you want to give it up for a better move. I take my time, set up on the Gyarados, and from there I sweep his team. I just barely didn't make it to level 71, so with my final 2 rare candies, I only make it to level 72, just shy of a damage rounding threshold before Jigglypuff is ready for the champion. Sandslash is one of the villains of these playthroughs, especially when it crits with Earthquake and Slash while I'm setting up Defense Curl. Because of this, Jigglypuff loses right away. However, if it attacks with moves like Poison Sting and Fury Swipes, or non-critical hits with Earthquake, then I have time to set up all the way to +6. At level 72, I'm not going to level up during this entire battle, so from there I have badge boosts. Body Slam 1 hits the Alakazam, and yes, Jigglypuff did outspeed. It's actually faster than every single one of the rivals Pokemon, even the Jolteon with its 184 speed. From there I use Ice Beam on the Executor just in case I get a freeze. It Leech Seeds me, and then I knock it out. But I won't take damage from this volatile status condition provided I'm one-shotting. I can't on the Cloyster, but it attacks with Spike Cannon. This is the perfect roll. Its special moves would have done much more damage. I knock it out over 2 hits. Body Slam almost one-shots the Ninetales, but I inflict paralysis, and then it chooses Fire Spin. This move, if you didn't know, is trash. It has terrible accuracy. As a a result, it misses, and I knock out his penultimate Pokemon for free. Last is Jolteon. I still have my badge boosts, and I mean just barely. Look at the experience bar in the bottom left. With the higher attack stat, I use Body Slam, and it does enough to the frail evolution. As a result, Jigglypuff pulls through with a victory against the champion on its second attempt. It gets a time in this playthrough of 1 hour 17 minutes and 10 seconds with 14 resets, 1 blackout at level 73 with a game time of 4 hours and 34 minutes. Okay, back to Clefairy. Now here I take a risk. I'm going into the champion battle with the moveset Ice Beam, Body Slam, Defense Curl, and Thunderbolt. I will not be able to use Rest. But if I am able to set up on the Sand Slash, then the rest of the fight is going to be much easier. Now I'll admit, I get lucky here. It does not crit me or use Slash. As a result of this, I get to +4 and knock it out with Ice Beam. Body Slam 1 hits the Alakazam, Ice Beam 2 shots the Executor, it chooses Barrage, Thunderbolt 1 hits the Cloyster, Ninetales Quick Attacks, Body Slam does not 1-hit, I take poison damage, a little bit more from Quick Attack on the next turn, and then I knock it out. The problem now is that Clefairy is at a lower level, so it levels up before the Jolteon, losing its speed and attack boosts. This felt like the moment where the hero is hanging on a ledge at the end of an action movie by like 2 fingers, and then somehow someone comes with enough body strength to pull the person up by 1 hand. Every time I watch those scenes, I'm just like, I couldn't do that. I'm like a scrawny nerd. If I was the person standing on top, the hero would definitely die. Anyways, in this case, the Jolteon just chooses Pin Missile, doing pathetic damage. Body Slam comes through with Paralysis, giving Clefairy the outspeed, and as a result, it pulls itself up with its own might. The champion is defeated, and in this playthrough, Clefairy gets a time of 1 hour and 19 seconds. Just barely not getting a sub-hour time. It had 13 resets, 1 blackout, finished the game at level 71 with a game time of 3 hours and 34 minutes. Okay, I just want to reflect on these playthroughs in comparison with the first runs I did a long time ago. Here's some footage from the Jigglypuff playthrough that I played. This is before I had a timer or any information on screen. I also then glanced down at the description, and I had a piece of nostalgic history, kind of like channel lore. This was the first video where I mentioned that I had a girlfriend, because she was the one that requested that I do a playthrough with Jigglypuff. If you haven't kept up with the channels over the years, then let me tell you that she has evolved into my fiance, and since then into my wife. We've actually been married for over a year now. I don't know, time flies. In the case of the prior Jigglypuff video, the only metric I have to compare to is my level at the end of the game. I didn't present anything else, even the game time. I finished that run at level 90. So I did much better in this playthrough, finishing the game at level 73. With Clefairy, we have most of the modern metrics. I finished the game in 1 hour 23 minutes and 20 seconds with 5 resets. I wasn't tracking blackouts back then, and I did this at level 69, with a game time of 5 hours and 7 minutes. And I think comparing these results teaches us an important lesson. I am so much faster now in terms of real time and game time, but I had more resets, blackouts, and I finished the game at a higher level. What this teaches me is that having a consistent strategy is not always faster. You can reset a bunch of times and still get a much better overall real time, and of course your game time is going to be better. But now that I've reduced the time of these runs by a lot, can I shave off even more in modern follow-ups? Well, let's see. We're going to deal with Clefairy first. What I learned during my first playthrough is there are some moments that require luck, but overall this Pokemon is very capable. That said, I think because of its low stats and generally uninspiring speed, it's always going to be fairly inconsistent in one of these runs. And I did 2 follow-up playthroughs, and both of them proved that to me. I also think because Clefairy has such unique coverage, it doesn't make sense to level up and make things more consistent. Instead, it's going to be a better approach overall to just shoot for some lucky wins here and there. If you have resets, then your time is going to be slower, but if you don't, then you get an amazing final time. The only thing I change in the early game is I don't fight the rival on Route 22. I still fight Brock at level 15, but I just do a little bit of extra wild training to get to this level. Clefairy can beat him in a decent time. In my third playthrough, I get a split of 9 minutes and 13 seconds. For Misty, the answer is just use Sing. This is an inconsistent fight, but there's no reason to level up to a higher level. You can win right away. In this case, I have a total of 2 resets. Now, you might think that I should restart with this kind of bad luck, but since I know there is significant risk still ahead of me in the late game, I don't want to give up on this playthrough just yet, because if I luck through a trainer like Blaine with no resets, then this could be an outstanding time still. Now, for the majority of this playthrough until Giovanni, my moveset is going to stay the same as it was in the first playthrough. The major difference is that I'm able to anticipate where threats will be. So the rival in Sylph is one of them. I'm doing this fight at level 49 after using 7 rare candies. Because he has Flareon, he is really only risky in this fight if the Sand Slash drops your accuracy with Sand Attack. And that is what happens in my first battle. Clefairy ends up losing all the way on the Flareon, but in the next battle I arrive here with no Sand Attack and at green health, so the rival's easy in this case. I reordered the mid game so that I fought the rival first and did all my training and candies prior to him. Then I fight Erica so that she's not a problem. After this, Koga is essentially a free win, so let's check out the damage ranges. Psychic is a one hit against all three of the Venonats. Then on the Venomoth, look at the damage ranges. Psychic from the bug type deals between 40 and 48% damage. Sorry, did I say bug type? I meant dark type. Anyways, Psychic from the dark type deals between 40 and 48% damage, and that's with a critical hit. With a regular hit, it only deals between 21 and 25% damage. So even if Venomoth lowers my special, I will survive both of its attacks, giving Clefairy the time it needs to use 2 Psychics. Okay, so the run's feeling pretty good. I arrive at Blaine again at level 55, but then I use 3 rare candies to make him as easy as is possible. Clefairy is going to 2-shot the Ninetales with Body Slam, 2-shot the Rapidash with Body Slam, and 3-hit the Arcanine using Body Slam. Now I know previously I set up with Defense Curl, but after trying that over and over again, I don't think it's the right play. You're just giving Blaine so many opportunities to do things like crit or burn you or confuse you. These are ways in which Clefairy can fall apart, and if you just attack right away, sometimes Clefairy will paralyze or occasionally critical hit. Plus, when I'm going on the offense, if I lose, the loss comes fairly quickly, whereas with Defense Curl, I could take a very long time trying to get set up, alternating back and forth between Tail Whip and Defense Curl, and then eventually just get crit by Flamethrower and have to start all over again. This is the moment in the run I put the most thought into, and it still looks the sloppiest. I go all the way from 3 resets up to 10 before I finally defeat Blaine. He is, quite frankly, still brutal. However, upon defeating him, I get a split of 44 minutes and 29 seconds, which I think is pretty good for Clefairy. This is where I change my strategy. Instead of relying on Body Slam or Ice Beam for Giovanni, I'm going to teach Mimic in the place of Body Slam. This way, I can mimic Persian's Double Team and then set up with this move and potentially Defense Curl as well if I really want massive amounts of badge boosts. Every time I tried this fight setting up with Defense Curl on the Dugtrio or the Persian, things did not go well. So the Mimic Double Team strategy does save me here. And if you're wondering why I'm allowed to use Double Team in this specific instance, it's because I grandfathered this specific strategy into future runs. My rule used to be that I couldn't use the Double Team TM, but I could use Double Team if I got it through a different means, so like using Mimic here. I initially didn't know that I could do that, and then I figured it out later on, and by the time I changed the rules, I was like, I don't want to go back and rerun Porygon. I did like 27 playthroughs with that thing. I never want to see it again. But it wants to see me with this one creepy little back sprite eye. Actually, speaking of Porygon, let's just look at the tier list. It currently has the last placement in the D tier. I think there just might be the chance for Clefairy to beat its time of 57 minutes and 2 seconds. So let's get back to it and see if it can. With Mimic against the rival, I'm going to steal Slash from the Sand Slash, and then I can use this as my go-to normal move throughout this battle. I got poisoned during this fight, so I have to go back to the Pokemon Center to heal because I was out of items that could cure the status condition. This is sacrificing just a little bit of time, which will be relevant. Inside Victory Road, I skip fighting all of the trainers to save time and go right into the battle against Lorelei at level 62. I know that I'm going to level up and lose my badge boosts here at some point, so I don't really care. Plus, I have a new strategy. I can mimic Amnesia from the Slowbro, set up, max out my special, and then knock out the Lapras without risk. It still seems kind of risky though, because I am at low health by the end of the battle. Okay, Hiker time. This can go wrong when the Hitmonlee uses High Jump Kick. That said, I survive it with Clefairy, and from there, if the Machamp doesn't attack, I will still win. Mimic can be useful against Agatha to steal Substitute, but I wanted to push for a really good time, so I ended up avoiding this move, just spamming Psychic. This turns out to be a bad choice. I lose as a result, revert to the Substitute strategy, and then she switches into Golbat, so I reset one more time before I finally come back in, use Substitute, and defeat her. That's one spot where I wish I went for the safe play right away. Now, the losses to Agatha did kind of shake me up, and I forgot a rare candy going into Lance. As a result, I level up and I can't outspeed the Dragonite, which is critical. So I have to use my last rare candy here to go up to level 66, so I can move first against the Dragonite in order to one-shot with Ice Beam. From there, for the champion, I figured out the most consistent strategy is Mimic, Ice Beam, Rest, and Defense Curl. This way I can set up on the Sand Slash, then Mimic Earthquake so I have a physical attack against Pokemon like the Alakazam and to manage the Magneton, and from there I can defeat him, although it does take some time. Like the Cloyster is a little bit slow, and and then things get very close against the final Flareon. Check out the time. It looks like Clefairy is on track to get a sub 57-minute time. Although, after Flareon survives my hit, he uses a full restore and then attacks with Flamethrower. It just barely doesn't knock Clefairy out. But then it chooses Quick Attack, and Clefairy survives, knocking the Flareon out, clocking in with a third playthrough that I did for this video and a fourth playthrough overall of 56 minutes and 57 seconds, with 14 resets, 0 blackouts at level 68, with a game time of 3 hours and 23 minutes. Get wrecked, Porygon. I just wanted to say that now, but we will rank Clefairy later. For now, let's go into Jigglypuff's follow-up playthrough. And this is technically the second run that I did for this video. I tried as hard as possible to record a third playthrough, but Blaine was so awful in all of my following attempts that I never even made it past him. I just reset like 15 times and then was like, well, I guess this run's dead, let's try again. And after losing that way, as well as losing in other ways throughout the entire run, I just decided that the second Jigglypuff run I did was good enough. The biggest thing I learned doing a bunch of failed Jigglypuff runs is that this thing is just too slow for consistency. Now for this second run, I am going to change up my strategy, especially in the mid-game significantly. The early game is all the same, other than the fact that I'm not going to be fighting the Jolteon team, so I'm skipping the rival on Route 22 just like I did with Clefairy's follow-ups. Throughout the mid-game, after defeating Lieutenant Surge, I'm going to upgrade Jigglypuff's moveset to be Body Slam, Defense Curl, Thunderbolt, and Psychic. I can use this set throughout the majority of the mid-game. I'm also going to do an extensive amount of training here to level up to 48 before Koga so that I can use rare candies to make this fight even easier. Even in this case though, the damage ranges for Jigglypuff are just not that good. It has a 40.9% chance to one-hit the first Venonat and then 2 hits on the remaining 2, and I have to use Body Slam to 2-shot the Venomoth. Jigglypuff can squeeze through here for a lot of reasons. Occasionally it'll get a critical hit, it could lower the special of the Venomoth, giving me another opportunity. Also, since I'm a normal type, Koga's AI has no idea what it should be doing, so he can also just use useless stuff like Toxic. Eventually Jigglypuff is going to win even if it has 1 or 2 resets. Okay, Blaine is next. I want to address something here because people will be asking, why not use Bubble Beam against him? Well, the answer is that Blaine's badge boosts your special, so you are not able to badge boost your special stat here to improve the damage of special moves. Bubble Beam, being super effective, will still not do very much damage, and with the fact that I can badge boost the damage from Body Slam for Jigglypuff using its higher attacking stat, the normal type move just ends up being far superior. Another downside of using Bubble Beam against Blaine's fire types is the fact that all of them have pretty good special stats. The far better move to use against Blaine if you have access to it is Earthquake, but neither of these Pokemon get that. Now I could use 3 more rare candies here to go to level 59, but that doesn't really impact the playthrough overall. Jigglypuff is just going to need to set up with Defense Curl and then sweep with Body Slam. I need 5 turns of badge boosts in order to outspeed all of Blaine's Pokemon, and at this threshold I will be able to 2-shot everything using Body Slam. Of course I could win with my first fight, but that's not going to happen in this follow-up attempt. I already told you Blaine was bad. At least this time I do manage to beat him with a reasonable number of attempts. I only have 7 resets by the time I emerge victorious, and then I backtrack to Sylph to finish off the rival. Once again, just like with Clefairy, he's much easier when he doesn't have the Jolteon team. It is by far the best team that he has in Pokemon Yellow, and that is almost always true regardless of your type, with one exception. If you're a water type Pokemon, the Jolteon team is easier than the Flareon team. I am not messing with you, this is true. The Magneton is so scary when you're using water types, you want to go up against the Jolteon. Although sometimes for time reasons it doesn't make sense to do that because you can get by Brock right at the beginning of the game, so why would you fight the rival on Route 22? For Giovanni, you can see that I'm not using the double team strategy. This is because Jigglypuff has more attack than special, by a significant amount. I want to hold on to Body Slam until the end of the game. If I can't delete it, then I have to let go of either Thunderbolt or Psychic, both of which are going to have their utility against Lorelei, Bruno, and then Agatha. So unless I give up my badge boosting move, there isn't really another option here. That means for Lorelei, I do get to rely on Defense Curl and Thunderbolt together to make this fight easier. Psychic is of course fantastic for Bruno. There should be no problems here unless Machamp goes for Karate Chop and knocks out Jigglypuff. It's a bit frustrating, but this is what happens when you're running a Pokemon like this. It's just not really that good at anything. Like, Jigglypuff is genuinely designed to just be bad. Anyways, let's get through this. For Agatha, I switch out Thunderbolt for Mimic so that I can use Substitute to make her more consistent. Then for Lance, I teach Rest in the place of Mimic and Ice Beam in the place of Psychic. Now the reason I really wanted to do a third playthrough with Jigglypuff is because of how this fight goes. Right now I am leveling up in the middle of the battle and I only have one rare candy left over to take on the rival. I used 4 before Giovanni to get to level 65 to hopefully make that fight a little bit easier, but I should have only gone to level 64, or alternatively I could have trained one more level and then still beaten 65 there. Having a rare candy before this battle would prevent the mid-battle level up and make things so much easier. The fact that Aerodactyl and Dragonite can move first against Jigglypuff causes so many resets here, and it is sloppy. I wish I could remove it, but like I said, I just kept getting walled by Blaine. This ended up being the run that had the best Blaine attempt that I did. So frustratingly, I'm going to take this Lance fight. I end up with 20 resets after him and move on to the champion, where I can set up Defense Curl and then hopefully sweep his team without him getting critical hits. I have one reset here before I finally make it through his team. It's much easier when he doesn't have Jolteon, and with that, Jigglypuff clocks in with my second playthrough for this video of 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 51 seconds. It had 21 resets, 0 blackouts at level 73 with a game time of 4 hours and 8 minutes. I do not want to play this thing again. We're gonna move on. Maybe eventually I'll come back and try again, but for now I'm just happy to be done with Jigglypuff. Okay, for tier list placements, the terrible balloon Pokemon that is just cute earns itself the spot behind Aerodactyl ahead of Eevee. Hey, at least it beat Eevee. I guess that's something good it has going for itself. You know, Jigglypuff could do much better, and it is worth stating once in a while that the Pokemon as they are ranked in my tier list right now is just my attempts with them. I am well aware that almost all of these results will improve if I do more playthroughs with each Pokemon. Like for example, Hypno has got some ridiculous times from other people that I've seen recently, and I could do that with it if I play it a bunch more times. And I'm sure that pretty much every other Pokemon ranked here could also do the same. So for now, Jigglypuff is stuck in the F tier. Clefairy on the other hand could do a lot better. I genuinely was disappointed with its 56-minute time. I think it might be able to squeeze into the C tier if you just push it and get good luck. That said, with today's results, it earns itself the spot just behind Jolteon and Rapidash ahead of Porygon in the D tier. Okay, so 110 Pokemon ranked out of 151 Pokemon. We are getting there. Only 41 creatures remain. We're going to rank some more this year, and then by the end of 2025, this entire tier list will be filled. Thank you so much if you've directly supported these efforts over the years on Patreon or through YouTube memberships. It really does mean the world to me and my team. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in tomorrow's video when Daily December continues. And this is where I usually forget the Oak footage, but today I actually remembered to record this voiceover. So for Clefairy, it's pretty straightforward. Defense Curl to set up, Ice Beam for the Tauros and the Executor. Then on the Arcanine, I steal Takedown because I need a physical move. Honestly, it's fine. I also froze the Arcanine, so that's why I could do that. I complete my setup on the Blastoise heal and then slowly knock out Oak's final 2 Pokemon. Now, while I did remember to do this voiceover, I forgot to record Jigglypuff's Oak battle. So here it is. I'm actually not watching it while doing this narration. I assume that it went very similarly to Clefairy's. And if what you're watching on screen is a complete train wreck, then in my future from when I'm recording this voiceover, I'm gonna get really frustrated. I am dreading going back and even doing one more thing with Jigglypuff. This has not been a fun Pokemon to use. Anyway, that's it for this video. I'll see you tomorrow.